Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to episode 2 of the Dan Wilkins Show. Last week we interviewed Dave Barnett, a former broadcaster for the San Antonio Spurs, Dallas Mavericks, and Texas Rangers, but today we're going from the broadcast booth directly to the baseball diamond, because this week we have Adam Capodieci on the show, a former Independent Leagues catcher from 2000 to 2005, and currently has his own academy for baseball training called the AC Academy. So welcome to the show, Mr. Capodieci.
How are you, Dan? Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. As, honestly, with some of the things that I end up doing for this YouTube thing, they usually don't last too long, but for considering how much, for a lot of the good positive press that I've gotten for the first episode of this series, it's definitely a good sign for me to keep continuing this on. So, we have Mr. Adam Capodieci on the show, who played in the independent leagues, like in the Independent Atlantic League, the Frontier League, the Northeast League, from 2000 to 2005, so this will definitely be a good one to cover here. So, considering that you were in the independent leagues for 5 years, just going to bring it all the way back to the beginning to start, when did you first gain an interest in baseball?
Probably, I was a little bit older than most kids. I never played t-ball. I probably started around 8 or 9 years old. My family and I, we traveled a lot when I was younger, so my parents weren't very sports-minded people, so I started later. Like I said, I didn't do t-ball. I got right into, actually, I think I did one season of coach pitch, which I might be a little younger then. So I started then, so 7 or 8 years old.
I mean, that's around the age that I started when I played in my town's little league. I never played t-ball or coach pitch or anything like that. I just started off, we have the minors and the majors, those sort of leagues. So I started off in the minors, played a few years there. Then I went to the majors division of my town and played there. Now I'm in junior leagues. So, the whole thing about Little League is that it's really divided It's divided up a lot when it comes to divisions. You got the T-ball, coach pitch, minors, majors, junior leagues, and even senior leagues, which are different than high school teams, so it's just really a whole confusing mess that just has to do with age groups and who gets in, who doesn't, it's all very complicated.
Yeah, no, it is. But I think nowadays, when I played, you really just had a Little League, which was the early part of the spring, and then in the summertime, as I got older, then there were a few travel teams. But I think now there's so many more opportunities for younger athletes to play almost year round. The amount of games that they play. I know I had to play. We'll probably jump a little bit ahead on a question here, but I had to play on 2 or 3 teams just to get a 50-game schedule through the summer. Where now, you can play on one travel team and play up to 60 games, so.
Well, it's definitely interesting considering that the younger athletes it seems like they're getting more involved into youth sports. Like, I've seen travel teams that offer programs for, 7 and 8-year-olds, 7U teams, when I remember when I was 7 years old, I was still, playing around with those, toy cars, and, just, having field day with that, and now they're playing youth sports at a, very high level of ball. It's taken pretty seriously, I think, by parents and coaches and all of that. It's just getting younger and younger, and that was different back when you started, back in the, back when you were younger. So, when did you first decide that you wanted to be a catcher over any other position on the diamond?
Probably the Little League for 2 or 3. Probably I would say going into my 10 or 11-year-old age group. I always was interested in gear, and I always wanted to be a part of teams that that you could wear gear in. And baseball, there was only one position with that. Lacrosse, you could have shoulder pad and everything, and I was always impressed with the more you can wear, the cooler you look. And then I started seeing what the catchers were doing, what they were involved in, and it was like I could look cool, but I could also be involved literally in every play. So it came to one of the seasons where I finally, kind of told my parents, I wanted to get involved in catching, and they were learning the game with me. So we, fortunately, one of the teams I played on, they needed a catcher, and that was it. I put the league gear on, had it fit me, and then that was it. I started borrowing gloves because I didn't have my own glove yet as a catcher, and I caught a season and I really liked it, and it just I guess I was good at it, and people saw that, and even at a young age, and it just kind of stayed there with me, I always loved the position from, I guess, probably around 4th or 5th grade.
I see, and I mean, catching, it's definitely a very exclusive position. It's like a very specific type of ball player that you gotta be if you want to be a successful catcher. You gotta be right-handed, you gotta have a certain type of, you gotta have a quick pop time, and you gotta be able to throw the ball down to second base. So, I've seen recently with guys like Wilson Contreras on the Cubs, you've seen him be able to play catcher and play the outfield. You could say that with Kyle Schwarber, too, because if you are having to be able to throw down to second base and also have a really quick pop time, you gotta have good reaction, good arm strength, and all of that, and that also kind of fits the motto of the outfield, so... there's less and less players in Major League Baseball these days that play only one position and one position only, so it's not like it's that entirely rare to see a catcher playing some oddball positions out on the diamond, especially in Major League Baseball.
Yeah. Bryce Harper was a catcher.
He was a catcher growing up, so was Josh Donaldson, absolutely.
Josh Donaldson, yeah. Greg Biggio, he was...
Yeah. And he
even
started off, as you said, in the big leagues as a catcher, and then moved towards the infield as he got into his prime, I'd say, around the early 1990s. So, I mean, a lot of people turn out to be catchers that don't really fit as catchers, and then they move to other positions, and then they have great careers. It just really depends on who the subject is in that.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Now, you went to Dowling College in Oakdale, New York, when you were younger, but you decided to go at the age of 22 straight to the independent leagues, straight out of college, instead of trying to maybe try out for a minor league baseball team or anything like that. Why did you go straight to the independent leagues out of college?
Out of college, I had been working out with a couple of major league teams. I worked out for the Mets out here. I've been to a few Philly workouts. I went to a Philly private workout at the old Veteran Stadium. And I was in the draft. Unfortunately for myself, I developed as I was getting older. If that, kind of that makes sense. I was good, but I wasn't as good as I was when I was younger. So to get my name to that level of being drafted out of my junior or senior year out of college, I really didn't have the offensive numbers that teams would have been interested in. Defensively, I don't think any team had a doubt in what I was able to do. But again, like you're saying, I played in the late 90s, so the game was a lot different. Offensive numbers were big, even for catchers. So I wasn't drafted, and I spoke to the Yankee scout after the draft, and he said there's a free agent category where there's a couple of days left where free agents could sign if somebody doesn't want to sign. So I waited, and nothing happened. So I already worked out for a few independent teams because they started. They were starting around the same time. Their season is pretty early in April, so I worked out twice, and I ended up going into Newark and worked out for them a day before they were going on the road. And they basically said, they didn't need any catchers. They just got a release catcher from the big leagues, and they had a AAA catcher that was going to be his backup for a while. So my opportunity there really wasn't going to be there, but they said if I wanted to just hang around and be a bullpen catcher, that was an opportunity for that. So I came home, I spoke to my family, and then, they said it's either that or playing a men's league. So I decided to take on a bullpen position. And when they came back from their road trip, then I went in and I stayed with them for the next 5 or 6 days. They went on the road, and then I wasn't traveling, so I wasn't getting paid. I was driving in 2 hours to Newark, and I was catching bullpens. And then they went on the road, and they came back, and 2 catchers were like, "Man, where were you on our road trip?" Like, I don't get paid for this. They said, so I was, they didn't offer me to travel. So Joe Borowski, who played in the big leagues after that season, he's like, "Cap, you're not getting paid for this?" And I said, "No." He goes, after BP, we're gonna go talk to Rick Cerrone, who's the GM. So we went into his office. Joe went in. He came out. He said, "Let's go downstairs and we'll talk to the manager." And then basically they'll have some words. And The manager brought me in. He said, look, the guys like you. They want you around. He goes, we could hire you as an employee, and we'll pay you, but that means you got to go on the road with us and travel. We'll get your meal money. So that's really how I got my start in the independent leagues. By choice, I would have loved to sign, affiliated ball right away.
Well, I mean, I was going to say, if you started off as an independent league catcher and started off as a bullpen catcher, I was a little bit confused because when I look at the baseball reference page, it says you played in 10 games, had 16 at-bats, had 3 RBIs, batted .267. Because I'm assuming during that brief time in Newark, which was less than a full season, you obviously might have had some, dual work as a bullpen catcher and as an actual position player.
So what happened with that? Once they signed me as an employee, all right, I was catching bullpen, so I had a uniform. I was in the bullpen, during the game. I had no number on my back. It was a joke. I used to change in the we'll call it the closet, kind of like where they used to keep all their supplies. And I didn't have a locker. And then probably a month in, the catcher that was signed the same day that I went in, he got called back to an affiliated team. And the other catcher that was there for a short time, he got called back. So they had one catcher, and we traveled out to Long Island, and the starting catcher got sick. He came out with a fever. So the manager called me in the office and he said, "Look, we have to activate you. We told you from day one. There's, after a while, there's a chance. We'll make calls for you, but there's a chance that you may be needed." So at that point, I've been working out with him for a month. I knew the pitching staff. I took BP every day. I did everything as a player, but I just never activated. So once they activated me, I got on the roster. I was in the Atlantic League roster at that point. Now it was it was pretty much game time. Now I needed to be ready. And so from that point on, I guess that was the end of June. I stayed on the active list and inactive list on and off. Now I got a clubhouse. I had my own locker. Now I was a player. I was on the team as a player. So that's why when you look at the baseball, I had 10 games in. Finally, by the end of the season, they started, they were getting comfortable with me, and I was getting more experience. I would do inter squads now and then. If a new pitcher came in, they would give me some live at-bats. So I was getting my opportunity that way, and I would catch, the ninth inning in some games. So that's how I got my foot in the door professionally. So it was really like a lot of hard work, a lot of effort just on my end, just to stay patient. Most guys out of college, they're ready to get into their careers if they didn't get drafted. For me, my career was there for life. My opportunity to play was going to be short-lived if I didn't use it.
Absolutely. Now, considering that you only played in the independent leagues through your professional career, had you ever considered playing overseas, in a different country?
Yeah, now my second season in 2001, I played in the Northern League. The Atlantic League, basically for me, it was out of my league technically. The guys in that league were all AA, AAA, big league players. The team that I was on in 2000, I just there was a ton of guys that were in the big leagues, like Jose Canseco. Shortstop was Bobby Hill. He was a number 1 draft pick out of Miami. He was waiting to get signed. So there was a lot of big league guys, and I came from a small Division II school, so it was really out of my out of my league. But I learned a lot. I got a lot of experience. I got a lot of exposure. I caught big league pitchers. I caught Joe Borowski every night because he was their he was their closer. So I caught him every night in the bullpen. So then in 2001, through advisement of other coaches, I got into the Northern League, which is now the Can-Am League. I worked out for them. They already knew I came with Atlantic League experience, so they knew I was capable of playing. And I signed in that league. And so at that point, now was my road of having an opportunity to play somewhere that was more of my level, more of my caliber. And really, if the numbers were there, the opportunities would have been there to, picked up by another team if that happened.
Absolutely. Now, you played with the New Jersey Jackals in Little Falls, North Jersey, and that was where you had the most experience playing 32 games with them in 2001. So I'm assuming, considering that it's now called the Can-Am League, I'm not an expert with that sort of independent league, but I'm assuming there were teams in Canada and you had to cross the border a lot. Was that like a interesting experience, like for you? Like you had to like have your passport ready at all times for that, like when you're on the road?
That definitely was. That definitely was, and again, I mean, historically, 9/11 happened at the end of that season. So going over to Canada was easy. Like, everybody's, as long as your name was on the roster when you got to the border, you literally were over, and you got to the border, they checked the roster, and then you guys were over. After 9/11, then things were a lot different. I'm sorry I didn't answer that question earlier if I'd wanted to play overseas. After that 2001 season, I did get a call from, I don't remember the guy's name, but he wanted me to, he offered me an opportunity to play in Italy. And I thought after that 2001 season, I thought my opportunities in Jersey were going to be a lot different, and I wasn't ready to travel. It was only my second full, would have been my second full season, and I felt like I wanted to be home, and kind of just be comfortable playing somewhere. And then when you play overseas, you don't play every day. I think at that point they were playing like Friday, Saturday, Sundays. And you were off most of the week, and then the guy even said a lot of guys use that experience to kind of see, kind of use it like not a vacation, but an opportunity to visit the world. Like 3 or 4 days a week, get to see Italy, and the other 3 or 4 days you're playing. And I was young, I wasn't really ready for that part of my life. I wanted to play.
Absolutely.
Too many distractions would have been good for me.
I mean, considering that you were 23 years old at the end of the 2001 season, just graduating college 2 years before that, having the opportunity to play in Europe when you spent all of your life in the United States, then that definitely would have been definitely a difficult transition for a lot of people to play in the United States for so long and then just fly to a different European country, play there. You're not even certain about how long that opportunity is going to last. You don't even know if it's going to work out. The most famous baseball player that I can think of from Italy is Alex Liddy, and even he was a sort of like a role player for the Royals in the maybe 5 years ago. But even then, he's not even that popular. Baseball's just not too popular in Italy. Obviously, there's a lot of popular Italian baseball players, but not just a whole lot from Italy. And that's, European baseball isn't really that popular in general. Germany is probably the most popular country for baseball because they've got guys like Max Kepler, Edwin Jackson, that sort of thing. So, excuse me, out of the 7 independent league franchises that you played for from 2000 to 2005, what team do you think you had the best experience just playing with them?
I want to say, I'll always go back to my 2001 season because that was the only team, not counting Newark. Newark, like you said, I didn't start from spring training with them. I came in after my college season, so again, that was probably a month into their season, a month and a half. With the Jackals, I was there from day one from spring training, and that was the only team in those 5 to 6 seasons that I was there from start to finish. So I think that team will always hold a special place in my career and in my heart because again I was there from start to finish, and I really didn't get a full experience or visual of the independent way of life where you can be there for a month and get released. You can be there 2 weeks and get released. It was happening, but it usually happened closer to the All-Star break. So for me, starting from day one, from a tryout in Connecticut to going to Montclair for spring training through the entire season, and then ending it winning a championship. To me, that probably had probably like the most impressionable part of my athletic career. Being with the same guys day in, day out. Traveling, like you said, going over to Canada. We played up in Quebec at that time, and Quebec was almost like being in France. Everything up there is in French. Traffic signs. Everything there is in French. So that was an experience. Again, like you said, being 22, 23 years old. Only being 10 hours from home, but being like in a totally different country. So that was definitely an experience. And like I said, that was probably one of my most memorable years. Because again, like it was start and finish. So I think it says a lot for that during those times where guys would be traded or released, quick.
And that's the whole thing about the independent leagues. You see a lot more roster moves during the season. You don't see as many trades, but you see a lot of releases, you see a lot of signings, and you see a lot of major league talent that actually played in major leagues for a little while that just didn't really, they just didn't really, pan out in the big leagues, so they ended up signing with the independent leagues and then kind of just goes from there. And in 2001, when you played with the New Jersey Jackals, you had some pitchers that you even caught, like Joel Bennett, Mike Berdotti, Ramon Fermin, and Matt Wagner. They all played in the big leagues. Some of them were more successful than others, but still, I mean, it's definitely got to be an interesting experience for you, who just a few years ago was playing in a D2 university in New York, in upstate New York, and now you're playing independent league ball with former major league pitchers that are just throwing to you like nothing's different.
Yeah, no, like I said, it was definitely an experience. I mean, especially coming out of Newark, catching guys and being in a clubhouse. Like again, going back to 2000, I had Jose Canseco. He's 2 lockers from me. Next to me was Bobby Bonds, Barry's brother. Bobby Hill was in the clubhouse. There's a few other big league names in there that was they were just like regular people, and it was like you said, 2 months earlier I was playing in a college game against 18, 19-year-olds, and now I'm in a clubhouse with guys that were either made millions or making millions, and then when I went to Jersey, I felt a little more comfortable because there were more guys closer to my age and closer to my level, and I didn't even realize, but I used to catch Joel. I probably caught most of his starts until the All-Star break, and I didn't realize it. I just thought that was the way the rotation went, but he was our pitching coach. He was our number one, and I was catching him, most of the time. So that was pretty cool to realize after the fact that, there was a, ex-big leaguer wanted me to be his, starter. So that was, and it was great to catch him. I learned a lot. And like I said, every day for me was a learning experience, and it was a learning experience because my goal was to still be able to play and get signed to an affiliated team.
Absolutely, and I mean, just as you said there with Joel Bennett, I mean, he was the pitching coach for the team and the team's best starter, so that's another big, I guess you could say, signal of the independent leagues, where you have coaches also being just a regular on the field and being a starter. It's definitely something that you don't see in affiliated ball or anything like that. Now, in 2004, you played for the Aces of the Northeast League, which they don't even... Baseball Reference apparently has this team so obscure that they don't even give themselves a name other than the Aces. But you also played for the Pennsylvania Road Warriors, and for our guests that don't know, that's basically a traveling team where they don't have a home stadium, they don't have any home, they're just basically a homeless team. They just travel from place to place, and considering that you spend at least some time with the Aces and with the Road Warriors, what was it like in 2004 playing for them with a team with no home stadium?
It was different because now that was getting into my third season, I guess, where you had a clubhouse, you had a home field. When you had a day off, you could either stay wherever you were staying. Go, you had a place. When you played on the travel team, that's what we were considered a travel team. Your days off were either spent in that last city that you played in, or you would travel to the next city and you'd have that day before off. Some people didn't mind it because you didn't have the headache of paying rent anywhere. We basically, as the season went on, you basically just carried a suitcase. You did laundry in hotels. Sometimes if you were if you stayed into a city, you can give the club of that home team your laundry. You can do laundry for you. So for some of us, as the season went on, it was a little bit easier. You didn't have to have a car, so you weren't paying for gas anywhere. But you definitely miss having the home. You miss having your own clubhouse. You miss having your own place to hang out. But I think it gives people an opportunity to really appreciate certain things. And it really kind of separates the guys that still want to play, because some guys can't handle that. Some guys are just like, look, this isn't for me. So for me, for all my opportunities that I had, I always, in the back of my head, said if I wasn't doing what I was doing, I would either be working a job or playing like in a men's league, hope and pray. So every time I was stepping on a field as a professional athlete, I was giving myself a chance, And plus, again, I love learning. I love being around the guys and just being around the atmosphere, And I didn't want to give that up. I wasn't ready to give it up. And family support allowed that to happen for me as well.
Absolutely, and I mean, playing on a traveling team, it literally means having no home. So, you just gotta, as you said, you have to either stay in the city that you were in for that off day or go to the next city, which I can tell for some people is just too much. And the Atlantic League is actually going to use another Road Warriors team. It's going to be the same one that you played on, like the same branding and everything in 2020, thanks to the folding of the New Britain Bees, which is actually pretty interesting considering that I'm from like South Jersey and I used to always go to Camden River Sharks games, but they folded in 2015, then the New Britain Bees in Connecticut replaced them, and now they're gone, so like, just whatever team gets replaced by the Camden River Sharks, or whatever team replaces the Camden River Sharks, just seems like will never work out. So after 2005, you eventually did not play in the independent leagues anymore. What was the, I guess, deciding factor for the reason why you retired at 27 years old?
Besides age, because it was, I started at an older age for guys that would have had a chance to play professionally at, for an affiliated team. And then when I was playing, I realized I was around the same age of guys that were getting released. So the start of my career, I always say start in the bullpen, as a bullpen catcher primarily. And then my 2005 season, it was leaning toward that way again. Like I was getting activated, inactivated. I was going back and forth on the activation list. I wasn't catching much anymore. And like I really started thinking about where I was, and I as you can see, like I played in a lot of the independent leagues, and as my years went on, if I wasn't producing right away, which was understandable, it was a quick turnaround. So that 2005 season, I went to Atlantic City, and I was there, and like I said, it was almost on the backslide of my career. Even though I felt like I was getting better, my time wasn't getting better. So my decision that season was it was probably going to be my last season. I was going to go into the winter, thinking about what I wanted to do. And then as the winter went on, and I just kind of realized, like, I'm going to put another, 6 months of training in for just an invite into a camp. Not even with an opportunity, not knowing, I think it would be a good time to kind of hang up my players' cleats, And it wasn't easy because I wanted the game to I wanted the game to make me walk away, not kind of like, be that decision. I wanted to be like, all right, I'm 30 years old. I played, 8-9 years. Like I had a great run, but this was kind of like, I'm kind of going backwards, So that was that, I don't want to say it made it easy, but it kind of made the decision going in the right direction for me.
Well, considering that you retired at such a young age and you also had a lot of experience in the independent leagues, what do you think was your favorite moment from playing in the professional just spectrum of baseball? What was your favorite moment? It could be a game, it could be an at-bat, it could be just a regular experience in general. What do you think that is?
I want to say definitely winning that championship in 2001. Like I said, I'll always go back to that season because it was, my longest tenure with one group of guys. Winning that championship that year was just something special. We had an amazing first half. Second half we did well. And then we were in the playoffs, and then 9/11 happened, and we were all shut down. Like professional sports was shut down for a week. And then the GM came to us, met us on, he wanted to meet us in the clubhouse, and he said where they were going professionally, what the sports were. We obviously, as the independent leagues, were the lowest on the totem pole. He said, so we had an opportunity to either say that we're finished, we wanted our season to be over, or, that they would allow us to finish the season if that's what we chose as a group of guys. And we didn't even need to talk it over as a group. Like we had veterans in there, and they were like, no, we're going to finish this. Whether we win or lose, we're going to finish our season. Because Montclair is 20 minutes from Manhattan. So it was a pretty close community, you know. So definitely winning it, you know. And the Northern League, then you had to play the East side, and then you had to play the Central side. So the Northern League consisted of our side over here on the Northeast, and then in this, you know, central part of the United States, there was like Fargo, Winnipeg. There was another group of teams out there. So the winner of that side had to play the winner of this side. So we got down to Elmira, New York, and, you know, the Jackals, and we beat Elmira, and so now we had to play Winnipeg. You know, and Winnipeg came over, and I don't remember the whole series split, but we ended up dropping a game in Winnipeg and finally winning it there, you know, in Winnipeg. So, and they're, you know, their support up there to us, you know, because again, they knew the distance from us from you know, Manhattan was amazing. So I want to say that was probably one of my most memorable experiences there. And then going back to my 2000 season, getting my first pro hit. You know, like you said, I mean, I was there from, I want to say the end of May until the end of September, and I got my first pro hit September something up in Nashua, you know, and it was, you know, it was you know, a group of fans that traveled with you know, Newark, and they were up there with us, and they videoed it, and my parents didn't make that game, but, you know, I'll never forget that night, you know, getting your first professional hit, you know, so, you know, like I said, there was a lot of opportunities of memories, but I definitely want to say my first pro hit, and then my first championship. You know, being a part of that group, that 2001 group.
Absolutely. Now, after you retired from professional baseball in 2005, what got you into baseball cards that you do now, and you know you do as a business, and like when did you get into that?
That's funny. I just recently got into that. After the birth of my daughter, I was coaching 2 varsity sports at the high school I work at. I coach girls volleyball, varsity volleyball, and I also was coaching my first season girls varsity softball. And my daughter was, I think, 7 or 8 months at that time, and you know, I was getting home late. You know, and I was missing good part of her day. And I just kind of thought about things, and I said, you know what, like my entire life was spent, you know, coaching and playing. You know, I think I'm kind of ready to kind of pump the brakes on one of them. So I kind of just took a step back from the coaching end of it, and you know, decided to spend some time, you know, after work and be home more. And you know, one night I started just Googling stuff and just started looking through stuff, and was still taking stuff out of my parents' house and had baseball cards that were coming over, and I saw that TTMs were actually, you know, a pretty big hobby. So I started Googling and saw there were some websites that you could join and get addresses. And so I joined it. And probably 6 months after, I started writing again, and I started buying packs, you know, and little blaster. But I had no idea what I was looking for. The cards are just cool looking. I thought they would look cool autographed. So, you know, even my wife said, what are you doing every night? I'm like, look, I miss coaching. I miss being around the game. This is kind of connecting me back to the game. You know, like I'm buying cards and I'm just kind of learning, you know. And then I have another Instagram page for my business, and I didn't want to start posting baseball cards on that page. So I said, I'm going to open up my own page and just keep it strictly to baseball cards and, you know, my collection. And like everyone knows in this hobby, it goes in so many different directions. You know, initially I was starting to sell cards because I wanted to save up to buy more bats because, you know, I have a bat collection as well. But now I do bats. I have a couple of guys that I, you know, personally collect, and I start writing TTMs again. So it's kind of just been a little bit of a whirlwind of, you know, hobby back, but it's been a lot of fun.
So I'm assuming this was like maybe a few years ago, like 2015, 2016. Yeah. I mean, that's around the time that I started to get into the hobby, like 2016, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, I mean, I want to say 2018. Yeah. The summer of 2018 was probably the first time I started buying packs again, you know, like just go to Target, buy diapers, and I buy a box of blasters, you know, like buy something different. So, yeah, I would say this is my second season really buying and kind of still learning, so involved in card business.
And I mean, absolutely. I mean, if you, like, I mean, seeing that the baseball industry, I guess, the baseball card industry, it's starting to get back up there again. Because, I mean, it was, like, really good in the 80s, then it, like, dove off in the 90s, then it, like, started to crawl back in the 2000s, now it's great again, so it's obviously a good hobby that a lot of people are partaking in. So, I'll ask you this one final question before we part. I'll say, If you ever made it on an MILB or an MLB franchise, what team would you want to play for and why?
Ooh. I mean, I guess you'd have to say, since I'm from New York, either the Mets or Yankees. Growing up, I was an Oakland A's fan because I was a big Canseco fan. But, I mean, honestly, like, for me, it was always just the opportunity to play somewhere and just have, a professional, like a major league, uniform on my back. Fortunately, I had a professional jersey on my back for 6 seasons. But really, any team that was willing to give me a chance and had, faith or had an eye on what I can do and be like, I really didn't have any one specific team. Like I said, the Phillies were pretty involved with me. I went to a bunch of workouts with them, so I would have been honored to play for the Phillies. A lot of guys that I've coached now are playing in the Phillies organization. So I don't really have one specific team. Like as of now, like the last 10 years, even as a player, I was just a baseball fan. But I was an A's fan growing up.
Well, considering that you were an A's fan growing up, I'm assuming that, as you said, you played with Jose Canseco in the Newark, I'm pretty sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, that must have been an interesting experience for you, because he played for Oakland, and his brother is one of the best Oakland A's power hitters in history.
Yeah, no, I mean, Jose Canseco was like, I guess my idol, like my guy growing up. I went to every Yankee game that, Jose came in. And, then that season to hear that he was in Newark, Ozzy, was like, I had to get to a game and see him and just like, wow, this is Jose's brother. And then a month later, I'm on the team and, we're in the same dugout. We have, 4 lockers away from each other, so that, I mean, again, that we want to go back to another amazing experience. Like there were days on the field that we're stretching or, hitting, and I'm like, can't believe I'm on the same field as Jose Canseco's brother, and his twin brother. It's not like it's just a brother, it's his twin brother. And there was plenty of times where certain angles, he definitely looked like Jose. I mean, they definitely have different appearances, but he was big and he had, like I said, certain angles, you thought you wanted to go with Jose. And I missed playing with Jose by a season because Jose was there in 2001 for a short period, I think for a month. That was when I was with the Jackals. But, yeah, he ended up getting released out of the big leagues, and, Newark picked him up. So him and Ozzy were there together in 2001.
I mean, that would have been amazing for you. I mean, I think it would be amazing for anybody to get to play with their idol, even if it's not with an affiliated team and it's like a lower level of ball. It's definitely very interesting to see, your idol in the same baseball field as you, in the same starting lineup as you, just like that would be an incredible experience. And I mean, unfortunately, you missed it by 1 year, but also you got a championship with the 01 New Jersey Jackals, so, it was a compromise, to say.
Yeah, no, it was definitely, like I said, every season was awesome and amazing time, and like I said, I would never want to change another day of it. Like everything happens for reasons, and I was blessed, and like I said, from day one, I didn't want to start my real life just yet. I knew I had an opportunity to play, and I wanted to stay after it.
Absolutely. So that will wrap it up for this episode of the Dan Wilkins Show. Thank you, Mr. Capodieci, for joining us for episode 2. Next week, we will have Val Whiting, the former WNBA player and second all-time highest scorer at Stanford University, joining us for episode 3. So thank you for joining us, and have a very good night, Mr. Capodieci.
Thank you, Dan. You too.